In the far reaches of the galaxy where civilizations have risen and fallen, a faint signal began to pulse through the void of space. It was weak at first, barely a whisper amongst the stars, but slowly it grew in strength, drawing attention from all corners of the galaxy. It was an ancient signal, one that had been lost for centuries, thought to be a relic of a forgotten age, a time when humanity had once ruled the stars with an unmatched might. But that was long ago, before humanity had vanished from the galactic stage, and with it the memory of their power. The Galactic Coalition, a vast alliance of species formed to ensure peace and stability across the galaxy, was quick to take notice. The signal was like nothing they had ever encountered. It was not of alien origin, and it was not from any known civilization of the present day. It came from a place on the edge of their territory, near the edge of the known galaxy, a location that had been considered insignificant, a place where no one had ventured for centuries. The Coalition immediately put together a task force of their most elite ships to investigate the source of the signal. They could not afford to ignore it. It could be a distress call from a long-lost ship or a trap set by one of their enemies. They had no idea, but they could not risk letting it go unchecked. As the fleet made its way toward the source of the signal, whispers of the ancient ship began to circulate amongst the Coalition's higher-ranked, stories of a massive vessel from a long-gone human empire, one that had been thought destroyed in a war so devastating that it had wiped out most of humanity and erased their presence from the galaxy's history. The ship was called the Titan, a massive supercarrier that had been humanity's pride and joy, the pinnacle of their technological advancements. It had been built for war, a war so brutal and unforgiving that it had marked the end of humanity's rise to power. Its last battle had been fought in the depths of space against an unknown enemy, one that had sent humanity to the brink of extinction. The Titan was believed to have been lost in that final confrontation, its crew gone, its technology scattered, and forgotten, humanity itself left in the ashes of defeat. But now, after all these years, that signal had reappeared. The Coalition could not ignore it. The possibility of a ship like the Titan returning to the galaxy was a terrifying thought. It could mean the return of a power they had long forgotten, and with it the potential for a new era of warfare, one that could upset the balance of power that the Coalition had worked so hard to maintain. As the fleet approached the source of the signal, the first signs of the Titan began to emerge from the darkness of space. It was massive, larger than any ship the Coalition had ever seen. Its dark silhouette loomed in the distance, its hull scared and aged, but still formidable. The Titan had returned to the galaxy, and with it the forgotten legacy of humanity. The Coalition fleet hovered on the edge of the darkness, their ships a mix of sleek alien designs and advanced weaponry, waiting for confirmation that they had indeed found what they sought. The Titan had been spotted, but it wasn't moving, not yet. The silence of space hung heavy over them as they waited for orders from the Coalition's high command. No one knew what to expect from this forgotten relic. The human ship was a mystery, its technology far beyond anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Rumors of its devastating weapons and impenetrable shields were enough to make even the most battle-hardened commanders uneasy. Back aboard the Titan, Captain Aiden Winters stood at the bridge, looking out at the star-streaked void before him. The Titan had been dormant for centuries, its systems long silent, but now they were waking up slowly at first. But with each passing hour, the ship's immense power began to stir under Winter's command. He and his crew of human survivors had spent years reviving the ancient vessel, and now it was ready for its return to the galaxy. They had done more than just repair it. They had unlocked its secrets and integrated humanity's own innovations into its systems, making it even more formidable than it had been before. The ship was no longer a relic, it was a weapon, and it was under human control once more. Captain Winters had been born into a world where humanity's legacy had been nothing more than stories passed down through generations. The great wars of the past, the rise and fall of the human empire, had become nothing more than myths. But Winters had always believed that humanity had a place in the galaxy, that they were meant to return to the stars, and now the time had come. The Titan was their vessel, their symbol of defiance, their chance to show the galaxy that humanity was not extinct, that they had not been forgotten. The Titan was more than just a ship. It was a reminder of everything humanity had been capable of in its prime, a testament to their ingenuity, their resolve, and their unyielding spirit. Captain Winters knew that returning to the galaxy would not be easy. The Coalition would not welcome them with open arms, but he was prepared for that. Humanity had survived worse, and they would survive this too. If it meant earning their rightful place in the galaxy, he would fight for it with everything he had. Meanwhile, on the Coalition fleet, the tension was palpable as commanders and strategists gathered to discuss their options. The first images of the Titan were transmitted back to their ships, and what they saw left them speechless. The ship was massive, its hull adorned with markings and symbols long lost to history. Its sheer size dwarfed anything the Coalition had ever built, and the more they studied it, the more they realized just how much they underestimated humanity's lost potential. It wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon capable of altering the course of the galaxy itself. The Coalition's response was swift. They couldn't afford to ignore the Titan. They had to act before it could reach their borders. But no one knew what kind of threat they were truly dealing with. As they prepared to move in, the realization dawned on them that they might be facing an adversary unlike any they had ever encountered, one that wasn't just fighting for survival, but for their place in the stars. The Coalition's task force moved quickly and efficiently. Their ships formed a tight formation as they advanced toward the Titan. The fleet's elite commanders strategized on how to approach the massive ship with caution. Their objective was simple: intercept and neutralize the potential threat before it could reach Coalition space. But despite their efforts, their nerves were on edge. They had never faced anything like this before. The reputation of humanity's once mighty fleet haunted their minds. They had heard the stories of the Titan's capabilities, but now they were about to witness it firsthand. Aboard the Titan, Captain Winters stood motionless as he watched the Coalition fleet draw closer. They had been aware of the approaching forces for some time, but he had never planned on retreating. The time for hiding was over. He knew the galaxy would not simply welcome humanity back with open arms. They would view them as a threat, something to be neutralized. But humanity had earned their place among the stars, and they would fight to prove it. Winters wasn't worried about the numbers of ships or the advanced weaponry of the Coalition. What mattered was the Titan's power. The technology humanity had kept hidden for so long was more than enough to challenge even the most advanced forces in the galaxy. As the Coalition fleet closed the distance, Captain Winters gave the order to activate the Titan's systems. The ship hummed to life, its engines roared. As they powered up, the crew worked seamlessly, with the ship's AI bringing every system online with frightening precision. The Titan's weapons systems came to life, and massive turrets began to rotate into position, their targeting systems locking onto the incoming ships. The Titan's shields shimmered into existence, an impenetrable barrier of energy that made even the most powerful weapons of the Coalition seem insignificant. The first shots came from the Coalition's flagship, a massive cruiser that launched a barrage of missiles toward the Titan. But the Titan's shields absorbed the impact without so much as a shudder. The Coalition's forces continued their assault, but each weapon they launched seemed to bounce off the Titan's hull or disappear into the void around it. The ships of the task force fired again and again, but their efforts were futile. The Titan had already begun to retaliate. With a deep rumble, the Titan unleashed its weapons. A storm of energy blasts tore through the Coalition fleet. The first ship to fall was a destroyer caught in the path of a plasma cannon. The ship shattered in an instant, its remains scattered across the void. Another ship was hit by a series of ion beams that disabled its weapons and sent it spiraling into the abyss. Chaos erupted among the Coalition's ranks. The reality of humanity's return had just begun to sink in. They were not facing an old ship, they were facing a force that had adapted to centuries of isolation. And now it was more deadly than ever. Captain Winters watched as the battle unfolded on the ship's monitors. The Coalition fleet was scrambling. They had expected the Titan to be a relic of a bygone age, a ship too old to be a real threat. But what they didn't understand was that the Titan was humanity's greatest achievement, and it had been waiting for this moment. The crew of the Titan worked in perfect harmony, With the ship's advanced systems, their confidence grew with every successful strike. Against the Coalition's forces, Winters knew the tide was turning. Humanity was no longer an afterthought. They were a power once more, and the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous they could be. As the battle raged on, Winters sent a transmission to the Coalition's fleet, his voice calm but full of resolve as he addressed them. "We are not here to conquer. We are here to remind you that humanity never truly left the stars." The Coalition fleet reeled from the shock of the Titan's power. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed that the ship was nothing more than a relic of a long-dead civilization, something easily dismissed, but they were wrong. The Titan had torn through their lines with terrifying precision, and now the fleet was in disarray. Commanders scrambled to reorganize their forces, but it was clear that the battle was slipping from their grasp. The ships of the Coalition were designed for speed and agility, but the Titan was a fortress. Its weapons were unlike anything they had ever faced, and its defenses seemed impenetrable. As the battle raged on, the Coalition's leadership held an emergency meeting aboard their flagship. The tension was thick. As they discussed their options, the situation was grim. They had not expected to be pushed back so quickly. Some suggested calling for reinforcements from other sectors, but others argued that such a move would only draw more attention to their vulnerability. There was no consensus, only a growing realization that humanity was not the weak species they had assumed them to be. The Council debated what to do next. Their options were limited. Their fleets were scattered, and their morale was faltering. The Titan had become a symbol of humanity's resilience, and they couldn't afford to ignore it. Meanwhile, aboard the Titan, Captain Winters stood at the bridge watching the destruction unfold. He was calm, but his mind was sharp. He knew that this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a statement. Humanity had been relegated to the forgotten corners of the galaxy for far too long. Now they were here to reclaim their place, and the galaxy would have no choice but to listen. The Titan was not just a weapon. It was humanity's declaration that they were still a force to be reckoned with. And no matter how many ships the Coalition sent, they would never be able to silence that message. The Titan's weapons continued to unleash havoc upon the Coalition's ships. Its railguns fired with deadly accuracy, smashing through the armor of the enemy vessels, while its plasma turrets sent waves of energy that tore through anything in their path. The Coalition ships tried to regroup, but the Titan's firepower was relentless. Each volley sent shockwaves that rocked the very fabric of space itself. It was a display of raw power, the likes of which the Coalition had never seen, and they knew they were losing control. Captain Winters was aware of the growing panic among the Coalition, but he knew the fight wasn't over yet. He had to keep pressing forward. Now was not the time for hesitation. Humanity's return had already shifted the balance of power in the galaxy, and he wasn't about to let the Coalition regain their footing. Now he gave the order for the Titan to press onward toward the heart of Coalition space. This was the moment he had been waiting for. They were no longer on the defensive. They were striking with everything they had. Back in the Coalition's command center, the situation had grown dire. Their fleets were in disarray, and their ability to counter the Titan's assault was becoming increasingly ineffective. Desperation began to creep into the voices of the commanders. Some argued that they should send in their most elite forces to confront the Titan directly, while others insisted that they attempt negotiations. Humanity was not an easy enemy to underestimate, but what choice did they have in the face of such overwhelming force? The answer was clear to Captain Winters. The time for negotiation was long past. Humanity had waited for centuries to be heard, and now they would be known as a power no one could ignore. The Coalition's response would decide the future of the galaxy, but it was already clear to Winters that humanity was not going to be silenced again. Amid the chaos of the battlefield, a small group of Coalition officers had begun to formulate a daring plan. They knew they had to understand the Titan better if they had any hope of defeating it, or at the very least negotiating a peaceful resolution to the conflict. There were whispers of an elite strike team that had been trained specifically for covert operations and infiltration. And now it was their time to act. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. They would board the Titan and gather intelligence on the ship's systems and its true capabilities. They had to learn everything they could about humanity's advanced technology before it was too late. Captain Winters was unaware of the mission. unfolding aboard the coalition ships. As the battle raged on, he was focused on pressing his advantage, knowing that every moment they spent fighting would bring them closer to their goal. But the intelligence officers had already made their move. They stealthily approached the Titan's rear flank and began the boarding operation using high-tech devices and stealth tactics. They breached the Titan's defenses and slipped aboard unnoticed. The officers found themselves inside a darkened corridor of the Titan's massive hull. The ship was quiet for a moment, but they could feel the hum of its systems just below the surface. There was an eerie feeling of power in the air. It was a ship alive with energy and purpose. The team moved quickly through the darkened corridors, relying on their training to avoid detection by the Titan's crew. The ship was vast, but they had been briefed on its layout and knew exactly where to go. Their objective was clear: gain access to the main control center and extract as much data as they could before they were detected. What they didn't know was that the Titan's artificial intelligence had already detected their presence. The ship had been monitoring their every move since they had boarded, and it was not about to let them simply waltz in and steal its secrets without a fight. The Titan's AI had been programmed with a deep understanding of human ingenuity, and it had been silently preparing for any potential threats to its mission. As the strike team made their way deeper into the ship, they began to notice strange things. Equipment they thought had been long obsolete was functioning with terrifying precision. The systems they encountered were more advanced than anything the Coalition had ever seen, and the deeper they went, the more they realized just how dangerous humanity's technology was. They found weapons that could alter the very structure of space itself and systems that could predict enemy movements with eerie accuracy. The strike team was beginning to understand that the Titan was not just a ship, it was a weapon capable of shifting the balance of power in the galaxy itself. They finally reached the control center and began downloading the ship's data, but as they did, the ship's AI activated its security protocols and sealed off the entire sector. The officers were trapped inside the Titan's heart, and they knew they had little time to escape before the ship turned its attention to them directly. Back aboard the Titan, Captain Winters received the alert that the intruders had been detected. He ordered his crew to lock down the ship and prepare for any necessary action. He knew that the Coalition was desperate to understand the Titan's power, but they had underestimated humanity's will to protect what was theirs. The officers were about to learn that when it came to defending their legacy, humanity would stop at nothing to keep their secrets safe. The strike team was trapped inside the Titan's control center. Their mission to gather intelligence had been a failure, and now they were at the mercy of the ship's advanced security systems. The doors to the control room slammed shut, and the lights flickered as the ship's AI took full control of the situation. The team scrambled to access their communications equipment, but it was too late. The Titan's systems had locked them out, and they were now isolated from the rest of the Coalition fleet. Outside, the team leader, Captain Ilara Rex, cursed under her breath. She had never expected the Titan to be so sophisticated. Humanity had always been known for its ingenuity, but the scale of their technological advancements was something no one had anticipated. Outside the Titan, the Coalition's remaining forces were in full retreat. Their ships had sustained heavy damage, and their morale was at an all-time low. Captain Winters had anticipated the shift in momentum, and now he prepared to press his advantage further. But as he stood on the bridge of the Titan, he knew the Coalition was far from defeated. They would regroup and attempt to strike again, and that meant humanity needed to make a bold move to secure their future in the galaxy. Winters had made the decision he would not let this moment slip away. Humanity was here to stay, and he would not allow their enemies to ignore them any longer. He gave the order to begin moving deeper into Coalition space. The Titan's massive engines roared to life once more as the ship slowly turned toward its next destination. Coalition space was within reach, and the crew of the Titan prepared for what was to come. The ship's weapon systems hummed with energy as they powered up, and its shields shimmered in anticipation of the next engagement. Captain Winters knew that what he was about to do would have massive consequences. It would force the galaxy to take notice of humanity once more, and he was willing to risk everything to ensure that humanity's voice was heard. Meanwhile, inside the Titan's control center, Captain Rex and her team frantically worked to find an escape route. They had no intention of being captured. They knew the ship's AI was watching their every move, and they had to be quick. Their best chance was to get back to their ship and warn the rest of the fleet. But as they tried to move toward the exit, they were met with resistance. The AI had already activated the ship's automated defenses, and they found themselves facing drones that had been activated to stop them from escaping. Rex ordered her team to hold their ground, but the drones were relentless, their weapons sharp, and their movements precise. The team fought back with everything they had, but it was clear they were outmatched. Rex's mind raced as she tried to think of a way out, but the situation was growing more desperate by the second. Back aboard the Titan, Winters could feel the tension rise as the ship moved deeper into Coalition territory. The battle was not yet won, but humanity had made its point. They had returned to the galaxy, and they would not be ignored. Captain Winters knew there was no going back now. He had already sent a message to the Coalition fleet, informing them of humanity's intentions. It was a bold declaration, and one that would surely send shockwaves through the galaxy. But he also knew it was the only way to ensure that humanity would no longer be viewed as a forgotten relic of the past. Now the galaxy would remember humanity for its strength, its resolve, and its unyielding desire to reclaim its place among the stars. The Coalition fleet was still retreating, but their leaders knew the situation was far from over. Rex's team was still missing, and the Titans' rampage through their territory had only just begun. They needed to regroup. They needed to find a way to stop humanity before it was too late. The Coalition leaders convened in a high-stakes meeting aboard their flagship. They were shaken. The Titans' assault had been devastating, and their intelligence officers were still unable to account for Rex's team. No one knew exactly what had happened inside the Titan, or what information they had gathered, but the reality was clear. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the weak species the galaxy had assumed them to be. The Coalition's initial strategy had failed, and now they had to reconsider their entire approach. Captain Winters had not only shown them the power of the Titan, but also the undeniable will of humanity to reclaim their place in the galaxy. The question now was how far they were willing to go to stop them. The Coalition's leaders discussed their options, but each plan seemed to carry immense risks. The more they spoke, the more they realized that the only real way to stop the Titan was to destroy it. But how could they destroy something so powerful when their forces had already been scattered and overwhelmed? Their only hope lay in bringing in reinforcements from across the galaxy. But even that would take time, and during that time the Titan would only continue to push further into their territory. The Coalition's defenses were weakening, and they knew that every minute they delayed made it more likely that the Titan would reach their capital worlds. Back aboard the Titan, Captain Winters watched as the Coalition fleet regrouped. He knew they were already planning their next move, but he wasn't worried. The Titan's power had only begun to reveal itself, and he was prepared for whatever came next. The ship's advanced AI had already mapped out the next phase of the mission, and the crew was ready to carry it out. Winters' mind raced as he considered the implications of his next move. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they were capable of fighting back, but now it was time to show them that they could lead again. The Titan was the symbol of humanity's rebirth, and Captain Winters was determined to ensure that the message would be heard across the stars. He gave the order to move the Titan toward the heart of Coalition space. He wasn't seeking conquest or revenge. He was making the statement humanity was not going to be silenced or pushed aside again. The galaxy had long thought that humanity had disappeared, that they had become nothing more than a faded memory of a time long past. But the Titan's return was a signal that humanity was back, and they would not go quietly into the shadows. The journey was not without its challenges. As the Titan moved deeper into Coalition space, more resistance appeared, but the ship was a fortress, and with every passing hour it became more and more apparent that the Coalition's forces were no match for it. Their attempts to block the Titan's path were futile. Each time they tried to engage the Titan, it tore through their lines with ruthless efficiency. It was clear that humanity had learned from its past mistakes, and the Titan had been designed to face the toughest challenges the galaxy had to offer. Meanwhile, Captain Rex and her team had managed to escape the Titan's control center. They had fought tooth and nail to survive, and they finally made their way back to their ship. but they were forever changed. The knowledge they had gathered from inside the Titan was invaluable, and they knew that it would take everything the Coalition had to stop humanity from fully reclaiming its place in the galaxy. Rex knew that this was only the beginning, and as they prepared to depart for the Coalition's command center, she could only wonder what the next chapter of this galactic struggle would bring. Captain Winters did not wait for the Coalition to make the next move. He was already on the offensive. Humanity's return was no longer a threat to be contained. It was a new era that had only just begun. As the Titan moved deeper into Coalition space, the galaxy began to take notice. Whispers spread like wildfire across the stars about the return of humanity and the incredible power of their ancient supercarrier. Every corner of the galaxy now watched as the Titan became a symbol of defiance and hope. The galaxy's leaders were forced to confront the reality that humanity was not just back, but stronger than ever. The Coalition had underestimated humanity's will to survive and to thrive. They had thought of humans as a forgotten species, but now they knew they were wrong. The Titan was humanity's voice, and it was loud and unyielding. Captain Winters stood on the bridge of the Titan as his ship cut through the vastness of space. He was calm, but inside, he could feel the weight of the moment. Humanity had not just survived the dark ages, they had risen to challenge the powers that had once believed them to be extinct. The Coalition fleet had been broken, but Winters knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity's place in it was no longer in doubt. The old systems of power had been shaken, and it was time for a new order to emerge. The Coalition's High Command had called for an emergency summit to decide how to respond to the Titan's relentless advance, but even their most powerful fleets had been unable to slow the ship down. Their weapons were useless against the Titan's formidable shields, and its weapon systems were unmatched. As the Coalition leaders gathered in their council chambers, the reality was sinking in. Humanity was not something they could ignore or fight off with sheer force. They would have to find a new way to deal with this growing power. Captain Rex and her team had returned to Coalition headquarters with the vital information they had gathered from their infiltration of the Titan. They presented their findings to the High Command, but even their best strategists were at a loss. They had never encountered a threat like this before. Humanity's technology was light years ahead of anything they had ever seen, and the Titan's crew was not only skilled but fiercely determined to defend what was theirs. The data revealed that the Titan was far more than a weapon. It was an entire war machine designed to adapt and counter any force it faced. The Coalition's leadership was in disarray, and many knew that no amount of reinforcements or tactics would be enough to defeat humanity now. The Coalition's council finally acknowledged what had been apparent for some time. Humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. They could not afford to keep fighting a war they could not win. Instead, the only option left was diplomacy, but even that was fraught with uncertainty. The terms of such a negotiation would be impossible to determine without risking the collapse of the current power structure in the galaxy. But one thing was clear: the time for underestimating humanity had passed. As the Titan approached the heart of Coalition space, Captain Winters stood before his crew and addressed them in a calm but resolute voice. Humanity had made its return to the stars, and they would not be forgotten again. The galaxy would know their name, and they would fight for their place among the great powers of the galaxy. They would fight for peace, but only on their terms. Winters knew that the galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that change, but the future was still uncertain. What came next was up to humanity to decide. The final moments of the journey were upon them, and Captain Winters knew that the battle for the galaxy's future was far from over. But humanity had already proven its strength and its resolve. The Titan was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of a new beginning for a species that had been forgotten, but was now ready to reclaim its rightful place among the stars.